Welcome to The Open Door with Kelly
and Kelly,
brought to you by Collective Creations
and Legendary Living Arts.
Each week, join us for discussions on spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical health with guests from all walks of life.
We invite you to connect. Well, welcome, Hannah, to our show today. I am so excited to have you on. You and I were chatting a bit before we started recording, and we were figuring it's been about 10 or 11 years that we've sort of known each other on social media, not really too much about each other's lives, but we follow each other's posts, and you've known me as my pen name, Kellie Cameron, most of the time. And your pen name is Hannah Byron. And so I'm just excited to have you on the show because I know I watch your Instagram. Your Instagram feed is very funny and I like your posts. So you're just, it's wonderful to see you active on social media and publishing your books. And I'm so pleased to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I was really looking forward to this podcast and talk with you. I mean, it's always nice when you have sort of known each other, but you haven't had the opportunity to sit down with each other and talk. I think that is really nice. So thank you for inviting me. And I'm looking forward to your questions.
Oh, well, it's nice. It is nice nowadays with the Zoom platform or other social platforms where you can actually talk sort of face to face from other parts of the world because you're in the Netherlands, correct?
Yes. I'm on the other side of the Great Pond.
Yeah.
And I am very European. I mean, I was born in Paris, in France, but I have a British mum and a Dutch dad. So these three countries, Great Britain, also Ireland, because I also have Irish blood, and France and the Netherlands, they are sort of my triangle that I always sort of come back to. And my books, often.
Yeah. So your books are set in, well, the first one, there's an entire series, the Resistance Girls series, correct? And the first one you have is based in World War I. And I haven't read that one, but I am currently reading is it the third or the fourth now? Is it the Norwegian Assassin? That's the fourth, right? That's the fourth one. And I have to say, I feel transported to another time and place when I'm reading it. And I really feel like I'm a part of the main character's life and her thoughts and what she's thinking. And I'm just loving it. And I, like I said to you before, that I wish I'd had more time to be able to finish it before today, but I will finish it. It's very good. So I really recommend it. And I can feel the tension in her character. And so why did you choose to write about this particular time in history?
Yeah. So, when I was sure that I wanted to write historical fiction, at first I wasn't really sure which period I would choose. I was thinking about the 19th century, and there is nothing that will stop me after this series is done to write some Gothic stories from the end of the 19th century, because I love those as well. But it was sort of accidental. So my mother passed away in 2017. I was going through her stuff, and I had this photograph. I'll see if I have it here. Yeah, I have it here. I don't know if you can see it. So this photograph fell out of an envelope, and it had two names on the back, and it said something with uncle, but there was also a question mark. Now, my mum was very demented towards the end of her life, so I couldn't really figure out what it was, but it was clear that one of them was in a First World War uniform. So I did a lot of digging. I found out that it were two great uncles of mine. One had died in the trench wars in the Somme, and one had died aboard a ship that was torpedoed. So I was intrigued by this story, and I went for research on the spot in the north of France, and then I knew for sure that I wanted to write this book. But I already knew that I wanted to write about the Second World War. So I thought if I set up, because my books also have a lot of romance, if I set up two couples that have daughters, then these daughters can be resistance girls in the Second World War. So these are the two books that you didn't read. So the second book, The Diamond Courier, is the daughter of one couple, and the third book, The Parisian Spy, is the other daughter of the other couple.
Oh,
and
excellent.
Esther is the girl that the main hub of my books is that all the girls meet at a finishing school in Switzerland before the war. So in 1938, 1939. And that is actually the only overlap, because they're standalone books, so you can read them separately. Even the first one, the prequel, can be read separately. But the Second World War is my main focus and will be for a while. When I thought of what I like, and it is very bad to say that you like a war scene, but it is an incredible canvas to have your characters go through something, something. So basically, ordinary people can do extraordinary things during a war. And for an author, that is such high stakes. So I see it as a canvas. It's terrible to say that you use a war as a canvas, but it is a little bit that, this sort of ringer that your characters go through is that period gives you that possibility. And I'm fascinated by the Second World War. Of course, I always say I'm an indirect product of it myself, because my uncle Tom landed on the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, and he came to liberate Holland. And so after the war, my mother, he kept in touch with the people he had come to know here. My mum came here, and this was 1949 that she came here for the first time. And at the time, this is a really rural part of Holland. You wouldn't imagine it because there are so many people living in Holland, but you have some rural areas still. And nobody spoke English at the time. So this young student of French, my mum studied French in Manchester, and she just took her bike across from Dover and cycled up the Belgian coast and came to Holland. And so they didn't know what to do with this girl that only spoke English. So they rounded up the local intellectual, being my father. So that's how my parents met. And so I always say I'm an indirect result. And I don't know. I mean, we all have our fascinations in life. I still haven't probed exactly what it is, but I'm so taken by this period. I hear it a lot about the Norwegian Assassin, that people say, well, it comes so alive. I'm actually thinking of, I'm in the process of retiring from the day job now and writing full time. I'm actually thinking of taking a degree in Second World War history, because it is like something, for me, it is like, it's just not even 100 years ago, and it has changed life so incredibly, and especially for women, because my focus is on strong women. That's why it's called the Resistance Girls series, because I want to show that was the period that women really started with their liberation, and we today live on their shoulders, because of what they started. And I like the fashion. I like everything about it.
Well, I like reading about that too. Like, that's what really drew me in, is your ability to paint a picture about not only what the characters are feeling, thinking, but also their clothing, where they're living. I love it when an author can sort of pull me into that place where I feel like I'm living it, or where it's like a movie to me. It's not just words on a page. And that's how I felt when I started it. And like I said, I really want to keep going. And that was one thing that I was talking to my partner too about, Kelly, who's not on the podcast today. I was telling him that I thought this is really interesting because this is a part of our history that's not really that far away. You know, I have read a lot of historical romances, but they're set in, 1600s, things like that. So you sort of feel like that's a little further away, but this is something that's not even 100 years away. And I was thinking, wow, that even in that time, like in the 30s, there were women going to finishing school who had these, and that sort of blew me away because I thought, oh, that's not that long ago that we did that. And I think he was saying that in Europe, I think there might be still some of those schools open. I'm not sure, but I thought, wow, that's fascinating to me that it's something that I hadn't thought of either, that with the more like elite of society, that's what they were trained to do. They were trained to be good wives, good hostesses, like how to run a household. And I just thought, wow, that's not that long ago. So
no, that's true. That's true. And yeah, I myself come from a family. I mean, my mum was already pushed by my grandmother to go for a degree just after the Second World War. Because my grandmother herself would have loved to go to college or to become someone. And I think that is exactly what I also want to portray in these girls, that they become professionals in a way, they break free from this corset of having to what they are expected to do. I like that. And also one other main reason to write about this period is because the people who lived through it, and there are very few left at this period in time, 2022, they didn't talk about their experiences after the war. It was over. They had to rebuild their lives, and many didn't speak of the things they did. And I want to give them a voice. Although it's a fictional voice, I want to tell these stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I mean, a lot did wrong things, but there were just simple people who found the courage within themselves to do this. And I want to give them a voice. And I get so many letters from readers who say, yeah, I wish I had talked to my mother. I wish I had talked to my grandfather. They never talked, and it's too late now, but your books at least give them some voice. So that is what I did also with the Norwegian Assassin. That, I mean, the Norwegian resistance movement has changed World War II, but we don't know about it. Most of these books were never translated into English. It's not, I mean, the focus is always on France or on, America or on England, but never on these countries. And I also have the idea that I would like to write more, about books about, and I like to study that period as well, what happened. So it's a lot of research, but I love to do that as well.
That's fascinating. And I love that you're doing that. You're looking into aspects of it that people don't know about. Because as you said that people don't really know about Norway's role in it. Like for myself, I probably wouldn't, because the people who write what goes in our history books or what we learn about World War I or World War II, there's so much that we don't know about other countries that participated and how that they did it. And I know I was just thinking when you were speaking that my daughters and I once went to a museum that we have here in Manitoba, in Canada. It's the Human Rights Museum. It was a few years ago when it first opened, but we walked through and there are so many wars that were fought and battles in different places, and things that we didn't know about because it doesn't, it's not big enough or, whoever, or important enough for something to get in the history books, but because they have Polish and Ukrainian heritage. So we went through and there were a lot of wars in Ukraine and Poland that that we didn't know about. So they got to learn about where some of their ancestors came from and what happened over there, and just how, that ancestral memory too can carry forward, or just things that you don't know about yourself because somebody deems it, unnecessary to learn about. But there are so many,
Yeah, and it's even worse than that. Most of the history books, especially directly after the Second World War, to keep talking about that period, were
yes.
written by well-educated white men.
Mm,
But they didn't focus on the women. They didn't focus on the minorities. So it gives us a very
yeah,
blurred. So I see it as my task as well to, to unveil other aspects of what happened,
yes,
if I can, because there were so many other stories that will never. It's not just because they weren't important. It is just the choice of the historians, and
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
also why you probably saw at the beginning that I have a note for historians. I try to take the wind out of their sails at the start, because I already have them in the reviews, bashing me and saying, oh, this is, and they're not right, because I do other research. I try to find, you know, documentation that says otherwise. It's difficult to find because it wasn't written down.
yeah, and
That
it
were
wasn't.
deliberate choices, also from their perspective. I
Yeah,
mean, they didn't think they did anything wrong, but yeah,
yeah, and there's different perspectives. Like I was reading a few months ago an article about a female group, like a squadron group, like they flew planes and they did something specific. And right now I can't remember exactly what that was, but I thought, that's the first time that I ever heard that they had done something like that, because I think
yeah,
women especially were portrayed as medics or, things
yeah.
like that, but not as pilots or having other
No.
important jobs. And they did a lot
No,
of
so
those
that's
same
my
things.
task to do that. That's why
Yeah.
in Piccadilly Fields, it is a female surgeon who goes to the front and not a nurse. We
Yeah.
have plenty of stories of nurses, but I wanted to have I mean, there was no evidence. There were female surgeons, because we're now talking about 1918.
Right.
There were female surgeons, but not at the front lines. They were working in the hospitals in England and in Paris, but so that is the liberty I take as a historical fiction author
Fiction
and not a
author.
historian, to say I will put in a female surgeon. There were surgeons, just not there. But yeah, I try to break rules in that respect, but I always, I put that in my author note. That is a liberty I take.